there, I'm Christina with Time Saver Kitchen. Welcome. Today I'm going to show you how to make bakery style sourdough English muffins. I'm going to show you step by step on how to make these delicious and fluffy English muffins. Let's get going. Today I'm sharing how to make the fluffiest sourdough English muffins. They turn out perfectly puffy, just like the bakery style ones we all love. They've got that wonderful tang from sourdough starter and a soft open crumb that's just begging to catch every bit of melted butter you spread on them each morning. These are such a treat to make at home, and once you try them, you might never go back to store-bought. Sorry to crash this video with a shameless plug, but if you don't already have a sourdough starter, why not grab mine? I've done the hard work, nurtured it and babied it, and now I've dehydrated it so you can bring it back to life in your own kitchen. Just measure out the starter, add flour and water, stir, and in a couple of days it'll wake up and be ready to make magic. Head over to timesaver.com and adopt your bubbly new best friend today. All right, let's get back to the video. In a large bowl, whisk together the wet ingredients. Begin by weighing out 300 grams of active sourdough starter. I like to feed mine the night before, and by morning it's doubled and ready to use. If I need to adjust the amount, like I do here, I just swirl out a little starter until the measurement is correct. Next, I pour in 760 grams of milk. Then I add 3 eggs. I like to crack them into a separate bowl first, just in case one's bad. With the bowl back on the scale, I zero it out and measure 80 grams of honey. I love how the honey adds just the right touch of sweetness and depth of flavor. After I take the bowl off the scale, I go ahead and mix the wet ingredients. I know a lot of people like using a Danish dough whisk, but I actually prefer a regular whisk. I find it blends everything together more thoroughly. Now it's time for the dry ingredients. I've already measured out 1,200 grams of unbleached bread flour. Next, I add 22 grams of salt, which I've already measured. I like using kosher salt. It blends in beautifully and adds great flavor. Now I'm ready to mix everything. You can certainly do it by hand using a Danish dough whisk, but I like using my KitchenAid mixer. It just makes everything a bit quicker and easier. While mixing everything on a low speed, I like to carefully scrape down the sides with a spatula, helping the mixer along so everything comes together smoothly. Oh, and a quick tip here, be extra careful when scraping down the dough. You definitely don't want to break a spatula, or worse, hurt yourself. Just take it slow and go at your own pace. I've zoomed in here so you can see what the dough should look like when it's ready to move to the next step. Once it starts pulling back from the sides of the bowl, everything's mixed just right and it's ready for a 30-minute rest. Now it's time to turn off the mixer and peel any dough off the dough hook. Once that's done, cover the bowl with a damp towel that has been wrung out well and let it rest. Next, it's almost time for the stretch and folds. I pour a little spring water into a small bowl, just enough to dip my fingers in. This helps keep the dough from sticking to my fingers while I do the stretch and folds. Keep your dough right in the bowl and lightly dampen your fingertips so the dough doesn't stick too much. Now reach in, grab a section of dough from the edge and gently stretch it upward, just enough to feel it lengthen without tearing, then fold it right back into the center. Give your bowl a quarter turn and do the same thing 3 more times until you've worked your way around. By the end, the dough should look like a nice rounded bundle, almost like a ball. Cover it back up with your damp towel And you'll repeat this step every 30 minutes for 3 to 4 rounds. With each set, you'll notice your dough becoming smoother, stronger, and much easier to handle. It's such a fun transformation to watch. By the fourth stretch and fold, you'll really start to see the dough get fuller, stronger, and much easier to work with. At this point, feel free to use both hands. I like to keep one hand steady on the dough while the other stretches and folds it up over the top. Once you're finished, cover it up and let it enjoy a nice long 2-hour rest. This bulk fermentation stage does best in a kitchen that's between 70 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit, which gives you the best results. Before I start rolling out the dough, I like to give my counter a quick wipe down with a food safe spray. It just gives me a nice clean surface to work on and keeps everything fresh and ready for the dough. Once the counter's dry, I like to set up my workspace. I bring out my kitchen scale, then sprinkle a light layer of flour over the counter so it's all ready for rolling out the dough. I also dust a little flour right on top of the kitchen scale since I'll be weighing out the dough there too. It helps keep things from sticking. I also like to run my rolling pin right through the flour. A little bit sticks to it, and that way the dough won't cling when I start rolling it out. I do the same with my bowl scraper. Carefully lift the dough out of the bowl. I like to start by loosening it with my bowl scraper, then use my hands to gently coax it out. Just be gentle here. You don't want to deflate all those beautiful bubbles you worked for. If you're planning to bake on the same day like I'm doing here, just roll out your dough at this point to about 1 inch thickness and then start cutting it into rounds. Have your sheet pan ready with a piece of parchment paper on top. It's a good idea to sprinkle a little flour over it too. I like to use a 4-inch cookie cutter. I like to use my kitchen scale to portion out the dough, aiming for about 110 grams each. It keeps the pieces nice and even, which helps them bake up uniformly later on. Using a cookie cutter or even a drinking glass, cut out your rounds. It makes the process go a lot faster and keeps everything nice and consistent. Keep going, portioning out each piece of dough to about 110 grams. I like to use my bowl scraper to trim and adjust as I go. I like keeping all the pieces nice and even. You'll notice as I trim each piece, I set the extra dough aside. Once all the rounds are done, I gather these scraps, roll them up again, and keep cutting more muffins. Just keep going until you reach the very last bit. That won't quite make a full 110 gram piece. This last little piece didn't quite make the cut, literally. Once you've cut all your rounds, cover them with a sheet of parchment paper and lightly dust the tops with flour to keep them from sticking. Then lay a kitchen towel over the top to keep them warm while they proof for about 2 hours. Side note, with this fabulous cookie and biscuit cutter set, I can pick just the right size for any baking project I'm working on. If you don't already have a set like this, I highly recommend grabbing one. Heat a non-stick pan over medium-low and lightly coat it with oil, just like I'm doing here. Then gently wipe it down with a paper towel, almost like you're giving the surface a little clean. Dough can get pretty sticky as it rests. I like to use a pastry brush to gently sweep off any excess flour I sprinkled over the dough before covering it. And then sprinkle it with oil, which helps the dough bake up to a beautiful golden brown. I peek at it before turning it over to make sure it's browned enough. About 5 minutes in, I flip each muffin over and let the other side cook for another 5 to 6 minutes, just enough to get the perfect golden brown all around. After each muffin is cooked on both sides, I place it back on the baking sheet and continue with the rest. Once both batches are done, they will be all set and ready to go in the oven. Bake at 375 degrees Fahrenheit for about 6 to 8 minutes. I like to rotate the baking sheets halfway through to make sure they bake evenly. Once your internal temperature reaches 200 degrees Fahrenheit, they're ready. Okay, so this is the best part. Just take a look at these muffins. Golden, fluffy, and totally irresistible. Perfect for breakfast, a snack, or anytime you need a little treat. If you've enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up, share with a friend, and subscribe for more great recipe ideas. See you in the next video. Bye now.